I quite like Women in Black, and I quite like Perfume as well. Uh, Smelling it, I mean. So just from the title alone, so far so good. Hi guys, so the other night I watched the awkwardly titled The Perfume of the Lady in Black, another one from the seemingly endless collection of Italian giallos that's out there. This one is about a young woman who seems to have it all. So she's gorgeous, she's got a handsome boyfriend, she's got a really good job. She seems to be the manager of some kind of chemical plant, although in all honesty I don't know what this place is even now, having seen the full movie. But early on there's a scene where she wanders into this place and there's like beakers of different coloured acids all over the place. And Sylvia, that's the name of the main character, she seems to be the manager. Like, she's wandering around, everybody defers to her, she's acting very managerial. I presumed that this place might be some kind of perfume lab where new fragrances are created, given the title of the movie and all. But I don't think I'm right about that. But there's no real reference to this place again in the rest of the film. It's weird. I think at one point, one of Sylvia's friends references that chemicals are messed around with at Sylvia's work or something like that. But it's all very vague. We never really find out what this place is. But it's strange then that they would design this really impressive set with all these different beakers and stuff. It looks like they spent a lot of time on it. But if you're not going to then involve that in the plot, then why not just have Sylvia be like a school teacher with a boring classroom set with simple tables and chairs or something, if you see what I mean. But I've drifted away from the point. The point initially was that this girl has seemingly got everything, until the day comes along when she starts seeing ghosts, or maybe it's hallucinations. She starts to see a mysterious woman in black, who is actually Sylvia's mum, but except she's supposed to be dead. But she's also seeing a little girl who is like a youthful version of Sylvia. And of course, all this makes Sylvia think that she's going crazy. And as we get into the second half of the film, things start to spiral in all sorts of ways. But I can't really take the plot any further than I already have. I would simply give it away. So spoilers are going to be reasonably limited today. This is one of those films where you've just got to decide to commit on a fairly limited blurb. So this was directed by a guy called Francesco Barilli, who I'd never previously heard of. He only did 2 films in total, from a directing standpoint, that is. So he did this, and he also did a film called Pensione Pora, which is also a horror film. But I'm surprised that he only did 2, because this is a very stylistically directed movie, if not necessarily a very satisfying one. But from a technical standpoint, I was very impressed with this, and I'd certainly be curious to check out his other movie. In terms of the cast, so we've got Mimsy playing Sylvia. This is the lead role. And as soon as this name popped onto the film at the start, I knew I'd heard it before, and I thought I'd recognised her as well, and it was driving me batty. And in the end, I had to pause the movie and look it up. And it turns out, of course, that Mimsy played the weird girlfriend character in 4 Flies on Grey Velvet, and she's got this whole other body of work either side of that as well. She was very prominent back in the day, although strangely retired in her mid-40s, another one of those that just randomly packed it in fairly young, and that was that. I can't delay my main comments on this movie any longer, which is to say that it is extremely slow moving. It takes forever to get anywhere with this narrative, and at 110 minutes, it's far too drawn out as well. It shouldn't have been longer than 90. After half an hour of this, I still don't think you'll even know what it is that you're watching. The most noteworthy thing that happens in the first act is probably Sylvia having sex, and that's it. Even after an hour, I still don't think you will be much the wiser as to where all this is leading. I think you might have seen the first ghost/hallucination by then, but I don't know for certain because I wasn't keeping time markers or anything. But what I do know is that all the answers, all the kills, all the action is confined to the final 10 or 15 minutes. And until then, you're mostly just blundering through the dark, wondering what kind of film this is meant to be. This director definitely has a problem with story pacing. He just doesn't dangle enough carrots in front of you, the viewer, to keep you wanting to keep chomping your way forwards through this story. Although he's very good at the visuals, I'll give him that, as I hinted earlier. Like a number of great looking sets in this. I particularly liked the bedroom of Sylvia's boyfriend. All these blues, different tones of blues mixed together, and it looks sumptuous. And earlier on in the movie, there's this all red room, which I think is like a photography development room. That looks great. And then there's a graveyard with an excess of flowers. That's a terrific set as well. And Sylvia's mysterious workplace, can't forget that one. So the set design and the visuals in this film are top dollar, but they alone can't sustain the whole movie. You know, good set design, it complements a good story. It can't replace a good story. I'd rather watch a great story that takes place in a grim, dank, miserable setting than the world's most beautiful film that has no story to it, if you see what I mean. The two ghosts are pretty naff in this as well. The first time we see the woman in black, so she pops up in a mirror and she's just sat there like grinning and smiling away. She's carrying a vial of perfume, just messing around with it in her hands. But she looks like an Avon lady who's turned up to try and sell Sylvia a product. She doesn't look like she's arrived to scare anyone. And when I compare this woman in black to the Hammer version from decades further on, it's not a great comparison. And yes, I know that this version is technically a lady in black, but come on, basically the same thing, right? The little girl who arrives in this movie doesn't have much to offer either. My favourite of the side characters, if you can even call him that, is this random guy who shows up in a park. So Sylvia's walking along with her friend, who might be called Francesca, and they walk past this guy on a bench. I'd say he's about 60. He might have a monocle, but I can't remember now. And he sort of looks up from his newspaper, spots these two gorgeous women walking past and goes, "Oh, gorgeous creatures." And that's the last you see of him in the movie. It's the weirdest cameo ever, but I did really like it. That was probably my favourite part in the entire movie. So I decided to change tack and have a spoiler section because, in all honesty, this movie is so threadbare on plot until you get to the finale that I'm finding it difficult to sustain a full review and stay spoiler-free, to be honest. So the ending of this film is definitely one of its strong points. I did enjoy the fast, frenetic way that this story ends, and it's certainly a contrast to all the build-up before it. And what I liked about it is that this is one of those open-ended films where you can interpret the end in completely different ways. So I guess the most obvious way to interpret the film is that Sylvia was the victim of a cult which involved her boyfriend and all her friends, and they are literally eating out of her at the end. I think a lot of people will just go with that because it's the most obvious, although you could also say that maybe Sylvia is just a natural-born psychopath and that the cult stuff is just imagined in her head. She becomes really paranoid. She starts thinking the worst in people, and that's why she starts killing them. And this could be a natural thing in her that was always going to come out eventually, or it could have been caused by the chemicals in her lab, maybe. I'm quite proud of myself for thinking of that theory. I actually prefer this second interpretation of the film because I just think it's more realistic than ending up with 100 people stood around a dead body acting like zombies, pulling livers and kidneys out and stuff like that. Yes, it's entertaining to watch, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea that Sylvia was just hiding psychopathic tendencies personally, but it's entirely up to you. The ending is worth hanging on for, but if you're going to watch this film, just be prepared that you will have to go through the ringer a little bit in order to get through the main body of the film, which, like I said, is very slow. The film could have been really great. It just doesn't have enough of an addictiveness to it. You know, that on a scene-by-scene basis, there's just nothing keeping you gripped, nothing keeping you interested, and then, oh, wow, bam, you're in the last 15 minutes and things are happening. But it does have plenty of positives. Like I said, the set design is immaculate. The finale's good. Mimsy Farmer is really good value. There's one or two funny moments, I suppose. Not much in the way of scary moments on the flip side. So I'm kind of mixed on this one, I'd say, overall. Right, it's time to get to the bag of terror so we can see how I'm going to score this. So here's the bag, and let's see what we've got. So we've got 1, 2, 3 Michael Myers carving knives out of 5. A slightly generous 3 out of 5. I sort of wanted to go 2.5. I think 2 3/4 might have been the ideal score, but I don't do scores like that. It's a 3 so long as you've got some decent patience. If you don't, then it's a 2.5. But I think another reason why I'm giving it 3 is because if I watched it a second time, I think I would enjoy the entire film more, because I'd probably spot loads of clues about what's to come. It's probably one of those where, you know, you see certain scenes with the benefit of hindsight and you think, oh, that's a little clue as to what's coming. That's a little clue as to what's coming. That's a little clue that that person's a little bit sus, if you see what I mean. Whereas first time round, you're just running blind through the whole thing. You don't know what you're watching. You spend a lot of time in this state as a viewer. But I'm going to be generous. I'm going to go for the 3. But certainly there are way better giallo films out. And this is not a traditional giallo film anyway. It barely qualifies in my opinion. But there we have it. The lady with the perfume in... The Perfume of the Lady in Black. Can't even remember the title. Thank you for joining me. See you all again next time. Bye-bye.